I'm Tom Barber Duffy. I'm an actor from Bournemouth. I didn't start as an actor. I started as a graphic designer quite a few years ago, and then completely went off-piste. Decided I didn't fancy that. Decided I wanted to go to drama school. I'd been working sort of in the industry as a stunt performer and background extra. Just sort of fell in love with the industry, and I thought, let's give this a go. So I managed to get myself into Central School of Speech and Drama, and I haven't looked back since. What did I think when I was cast as T. Lawrence? Pressure. There's a lot of pressure on my shoulders. He's one of, I guess, one of history's greatest Britons, as well as being a Bournemouth boy myself. He's one of sort of the South Coast's most famous heroes, if not the South Coast only hero. I think everyone on the South Coast and almost in the UK has an opinion of Lawrence and some form of connection, or they feel that there's something special about them, about him to them, and so there's a lot of pressure to get that right. Yeah, following the footsteps of Peter O'Toole and Ralph Fiennes, and Robert Pattinson as well has played him most recently. There's pressure to do as good a job as they've done, but then also not to pastiche their performance or be led by them, because I think there's a large amount of people's sort of opinion of Lawrence that comes from whichever film they may have watched before. I think for a lot of people, Lawrence is Peter O'Toole, but Lawrence is actually a real person, and there's pressure there's more pressure to make sure you get Lawrence correct rather than getting Peter O'Toole correct. So I'm trying more to focus on the character than I am than the actor that played him before. He's a Bournemouth local, Dorset kind of hero. I'm a Bournemouth lad myself. I grew up in the cadets. I've had close military connections. There's a wonder to Lawrence that sort of is undeniable, and if you ask someone about them, they all sort of share in that wonder. So there's that sort of fantasy and, I don't know, excitement about him, then coupled with the mystery and what he achieved, and it just makes it very exciting to get involved in something like that. And then through my research, I think something really interesting that I've found is that not only is he instrumental in history, but that history you can see playing out still today, which is very interesting. My research, I was YouTube videos and books and such, and I was watching interviews with modern day soldiers or political commentators that can see his influence still in the Middle East, and the difficulties that our soldiers and politicians have in the Middle East at the moment. There you can see his influence. What he was trying to achieve back then is still relevant right now, and that's very interesting. It puts the pressure on my shoulders, absolutely, but I think that can only be exciting. I mean, since I was cast in the role, my sort of process, my method is to learn as much as I can continually, but that means then I can forget all of it when I step on set. If I know as much as I can about the character or about the subject or whatever I'm just about to go and do, I have that all in the memory, all in sort of in my body, as it were, to then be able to just walk onto set and think about doing the lines and doing the job. But everything would have been influenced by what I've learned. So as soon as I knew I had the role, it was as much YouTube footage as I could find of the man, books I could read, articles in the papers, on the internet, whatever I could get my hands on, I tried to watch or read. Tried to stay away from the films until the very last minute. I think because, like I've said before, I think people have an idea of who Lawrence was, and that might be more of an idea of just Peter O'Toole or Ralph Fiennes. And I wanted to make sure that in my performance there was less of that, and there was more of me. I think there are ideas we have of T. Lawrence that come from how film actors looked when the first film was made and such, and that sort of sculpts people's ideas rather than what it may have actually been like for T. Lawrence in the desert at that time in the middle of World War One. And then later on in life, that I wanted to make sure I captured what I believed would be not a more accurate representation of him, but a representation more, in my opinion, true to who he may have been, based on my own research and discovery. For me as an actor, this is the first time I've worked on a role that involves a real person. And you speak to people in Dorset, you speak to people around Wareham, where he lived, Bovington. Everyone has formed an opinion on his life, on what he achieved, what he didn't achieve, his death, and there's a lot to be respectful of. And for me, as an actor, taking on the role of a person who existed in real life, there obviously is my job as an actor is to entertain someone. But in a film like this, you have to be careful of the fact that you may also be, through entertaining, you may be educating, and that's a very difficult tightrope to walk as a performer. But it's an exciting one, and sort of my opinion of playing the character is that there's a lot of fun to be had, but there's a lot of responsibility, which is nice as an actor and a performer. It's very exciting, but there's a bit of pressure, but I don't mind that. I was a cadet at school, so I was brought up on the stories of probably Dorset's most famous soldier in T.E. Lawrence, and I've worked recently in my job as a performer with a lot of these soldiers down at Bovington Camp. So I know that stretch of road quite well. I know Bovington very well, and it's sort of, if that's something you're interested in, it's an undeniable piece of history. You can't grow up in Dorset without sort of somehow knowing the legend of Lawrence, and the fact that he was a local resident, and his life, that it was, a huge part of his life was in Dorset, and that's something nice to do. The opportunity to work at home in my county is fantastic. Yeah, Lawrence had a number of famous friends and interesting correspondence with a number of people, one of which being most notably George Bernard Shaw. And yeah, I'm a distant relative in some capacity to George Bernard Shaw through my sort of Irish heritage. I think everyone in Dorset would like to profess some sort of claim to knowing or being involved with T.E. Lawrence, and this is my sort of tenuous link. I can do it again with less arms if you